am the founder of Numa Outreach Ministries. We're a local outreach ministry here in Columbus, Ohio, where we focus on our homeless population, homeless ministry, opioid addiction and awareness. We're also involved in our youth community as well, and other projects that will be coming down the road here. I want to thank all our attendees this morning who are with us. Thank you for taking an hour of your time to be with us here as we discuss this topic that is much needed. Much needed awareness, more awareness is needed, more education is needed on this particular topic here. So I want to thank you all. I also would like you to, we're going to go live on Facebook this morning. If you would you share this, like this, or comment on Facebook as we're live stream right now. And we'll do our best to answer all your questions here, okay? So once again, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your time here. We're going to do our best to have a power-packed webinar here. I want to say this, I have two individuals here this morning that have will bring tremendous insight. I'm blessed this morning to be here with two men that are making a tremendous impact in our community when it comes to opioid addiction and awareness. And I know you're going to be extremely blessed today after we get off this webinar here. And this is may be the most important webinar I've ever done here over the last year or so. So without further ado here, I'm going to introduce to you our panel we put together here. And so I'll ask both of you, Mr. Hugh Ruff and Mr. Austin Hill, I'll ask you to take about 1.5 minutes here. And if you would just briefly introduce yourself, tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, so our audience will get an understanding of who you are. So we'll go ahead and we'll start off with Mr. Ruff here. Would you just take a moment here and share a little bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hugh Ruff. I am born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. Go Blue. My background, as it relates to today's topic, is I am in active recovery. I have 15 years in the recovery community. However, I am now with 18 months of continued sobriety in this season of my life. And I can assure you that it is worth the fight. It is worth educating yourself. It is worth every bit of effort to have the self-worth and the faith in your higher power. Mine's is God. I'm speaking of God. And it is important that you continue to fight and fight for others as well. Leave no person behind at all. And that's me.
All right, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself. Really appreciate that. Mr. Hill, would you take a few moments and tell us a little bit about yourself this morning?
Sure. My name is Austin Hill. I am one of the directors at the Refuge Ministries. It's an addiction recovery program that's based here in Columbus, Ohio. Refuge has been doing that work for about 20 years. And I came on staff 4.5 years ago as one of the directors for our men's ministry in Columbus for the last 8 months of our 13-month program. So I came into this area by my wife and I moved into the south side of Columbus about 7 years ago, and I was working at a rescue mission on Parsons Avenue on Columbus's south side. And addiction was one of those most notable things that was affecting people's lives, especially when they didn't want it to happen, and identifying different ways to become friends with a lot of people. So a lot of the stigma in addiction was broken with the relationships I was building. So a lot of my good friends were in and out of recovery. And I moved jobs in 2017 over to the Refuge, and I've been here ever since. And I tell people it's the most difficult thing I've done, but it's also incredibly life-giving because I get to see miracles all the time. So that's why I'm here.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Like I said, you guys are doing a tremendous work in our community. And today really is about sharing some of the things you're doing, but also some of the strategies. We want to kind of unpeel opioid addiction. We want to look at it from a different angle today. And so really the angle we're gonna go at this morning is really we're gonna look at the roots. It's so important that you get to the root of any issue. So you can pluck the leaves, you can pluck the branches, but if you don't get to the root of a thing, it's going to continue to at some point grow. And so our goal this morning is to try to peel back a little bit and look at some of the underlying roots that will cause individuals to move into into addiction. And so we really want to expose light today. So that's the angle that we want to take this morning. Before we get started into our conversation, there's two things I want to mention. Number one, I do want to mention that the funding for this webinar and programs like this about opioid awareness and education was made possible in part by the Ohio State Opioid Response Grant from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. I also want to let you know that all the views expressed, whether they're written or publications or by the speakers or by myself, the moderator, they do not necessarily reflect the official policies of the Department of Health and Human Services, nor does mention of any trade names, commercial practices, or organization imply any endorsement by the US government. So I just want to get that out the way. And in addition, about halfway through our webinar, I'm going to launch a quick poll for our attendees. In order for us to do these programs and continue to receive funding to do these educational programs, we have to capture a couple pieces of data, and then we have to report that back to the state and at the federal level to make sure that these programs are actually helping individuals in our community. And so we'll do that here probably in about 20, 25 minutes, okay? So I just wanted to get that out there. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's talk here as we start our conversation. So the first question I want to ask here is, we talked about how if you don't get to the root of the issue, it's going to continue to be an issue. It's going to continue to grow. And so let's talk about, and this is for Mr. Hill, this is for Austin. Why is it so important when it comes to addiction that we examine some of the roots, the underlying roots? Now we're going to talk about three specifics here shortly, but why do we need to go a little deeper and look at these root issues when it comes to addiction?
It's a good question because it identifies, if you can identify why something is happening, it can outline what the right solution is. So if we just use a different example like education, if we say that, well, the problem with education is lack of money, well, then we just throw more money at it. Or if we say that the problem with broken families is the fact that there aren't enough fathers or there aren't enough mothers, so then we do fatherhood training or motherhood training. So with addiction, it's identifying what the reason that underlying issue is with addiction, but people are complicated. So it's identifying what is that common thing that everyone has, and it's our desire for relationship. So we identify, and I see personally that identifying broken relationships and what caused those and how to rebuild those relationships. People don't wake up in the morning, little boys and girls don't grow up playing with G.I. Joes or Barbies and saying like, I can't wait to be a drug addict. It's something has driven you there, and you're going there to forget something or to focus on something outside of that problem. And I guess living in the pain that you've caused or the pain that's been done to you. And that's not just like, pain isn't this like thing that's over here. It's from people to people. So how do we live in that? And so it's those relationship, those deep relationships that are at the root of addiction. And so if it's not the like drugs affect us in a bunch of different ways, but it's what's driven us there to make that's the thing that's most important to me is this chemical, not the relationships.
Thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate that perspective. I'll now turn to Mr. Ruff here. In your journey with opioids and addiction, were you aware as you progressed and as you moved through your life in different journeys and stages, were you aware that there were roots or particular things that were maybe causing you to move in that direction? Are you aware of that situation when you're deep into an addiction? Can you maybe address that?
Absolutely, Sean. And Austin, that was very good. Um, I understand my family history. Knowing your family history is vitally important. Understanding that something in me, based on my family history, and this is not an indictment whatsoever on my family. I love y'all. I'm saying that something triggered the history in me. Something happened and it activated an addiction in me. It activated me to move on what I became involved in. So that's very important for me to understand. There is addiction in my family history. There is, undiagnosed and diagnosed mental illnesses in my family history. And again, I'm not indicting no, I'm just speaking truth. So now am better able to deal with myself in the best way, knowing what I am, who I am, and why I am who I am.
That's good.
That's very good. Thank you so much for sharing. So let me follow that up. Um, do, is there some level of self-awareness that is needed to kind of examine maybe some of those things that are driving you? And how do you get to a place where your mindset is even to look beyond just the drugs or the high? How do you get to that place where you say, well, maybe there's something else driving my addiction? Like, I don't. How can you explain, or how does that process happen? Or in your case, how did it happen for you?
For me, first I had to admit that there was an issue going on and I had to seek the help for it. That's outlined in the 12 steps of recovery, whether it's NA, CA, AA, however you want to go with it. And it allowed me to be able to get the professional help to begin the process of the discovery, to be able to pinpoint those areas through the symptoms, through the behavior, and absolutely, understanding that I have a problem, but I do not want to live with this thing tearing my life up. So I need some help. So I had to reach out first. I had to say I have a problem and I had to seek the resources to deal with it. I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely. Austin, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
I think Hugh hit a real important thing with his story. So we often, I guess, Hugh identified that like his story is what activated it, but also identifying and knowing his story and owning it is also part of that solution. So instead of running from the issues, from something, it's owning it. And that doesn't mean you're like taking full responsibility, but just owning the things that are yours. And then, because if you don't know what your story is, it's really hard to figure out. It's like, why am I doing this? Why does this person make me angry but not that person? Why am I okay with this but not okay with that? So knowing our story, and then not only knowing but telling it often and regularly to people we trust, is how we own it the best. So that's one of the most healthy things. That's that self-awareness thing you were mentioning earlier, of telling your story and knowing your story is how we can take it captive, and it's a part of who we are. It's not controlling us.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's really good. Um, well, I'll move on to the next question, and maybe we'll come back to that here in a second. Let's talk about the heart, mind, and the soul. Um, we are a body. We have a soul. We have a heart. We have a mind, and and how. Let's talk about how do those things really impact addiction. I know they're three separate kind of entities, but as we're thinking about addiction, we want to look beyond kind of the surface, and we want to kind of look into the heart, the mind, and soul. So when you think in terms of addiction, how do those three components really impact somebody in terms of addiction? We can start with Austin, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. So those three things, it sounds like they are very separate and different, but they are very interdependent on one another. So if we kind of like just go step by step, a heart is the things that, just in simple terms, what do we love? Our mind is how do we think? And then our soul, that driver is what do we desire? So it's those two things put together, the what do we love, how do we think? And our soul is what do we desire? And I believe personally, and we see it at the refuges, I believe it even stronger, just seeing the evidence there of our men going through addiction, is our deepest desire is to be known, to be deeply known, but also to deeply know others, and it be reciprocal. So that's that relational thing again. So they each affect things differently, because if any of those are like a little off or pointing it in the wrong direction, it's like, oh, so how I think is wrong. And so I'm just messed up and I can't move forward. Or what I love is something that's going to kill me. Well, that's not helpful either. And then if my deepest desire isn't that knowing and being known and knowing, it's my deepest desire is to not be known. That's a little off. And if anything in our lives and one of those three things is off, there's going to be that tension and conflict. And that's what we experience when like we're walking through life, or we know someone, like we all know somebody, even in our family or in our house, like they do some crazy stuff and I don't know why, and neither do they. It's because one of those things is off, and they're feeling that deep tension. They're like, I do it all the time. I probably did it this week. Something where something was off and there was a conflict inside me, whether it was in my heart, mind, or soul. And that's what drove me to do something stupid or something in an exaggerated way, or like I diminished something. So those three are really interconnected, and it's hard unless we have that self-awareness, that hard work that he was talking about, that of owning your story, where you can identify it. And in the moment, start decides like, now I'm getting my heart's a little too much in control right now, and I'm saying some things I shouldn't. So let's calm down. So that's how we see those things act.
All right. Thank you for sharing. That's great insight. And I'll pass this over to Hugh. As you were battling your addiction, what were some of the things that were happening inside of your heart, mind, and soul? I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but as far as some of that tension, do you recall having that tension? And obviously, we all have that tension, whether it's stress with our marriage, or stress with our finances. It's you can put whatever you want in there. But do you recall having that? And can you talk about maybe some of the feelings you were having, or kind of walking through that, and how you recognized it, things like that?
Absolutely. I appreciate that. I'm going to add a little more content to who I am. I am also a combat veteran. I deal with things from a lot of different perspectives. So I have PTSD, depression, anxiety. I have survivor's guilt. I have these things going on. So when you talk about heart, my emotions are tied up in so many things. It affects how I'm feeling, affects the type of decision I'm going to make at any given moment. Make no mistake about that. That's the heart. Where it comes to the mind, I have to be diagnosed in order to get some treatment. So I'm dealing with depression, PTSD, depression, anxiety. And when it comes to my soul, I definitely have to have a healthy spiritual connection. It is vitally important that I identify with a power greater than myself, because me alone in my head does not produce good decisions. So my spirituality is very important. That's my heart, that's my mind, and that's my soul. And there is a whole lot more to that. But for the sake of time, I'll just lean on that right there.
All right. Definitely take that insight there. Did you have something to follow up with, Austin?
No, that was really good. That's very true. There's a whole lot there.
Awesome. I'm going to ask a question that is just kind of came to me here. So, what is how important is it to so there's all types of treatments, and we're going to talk about that in the next webinar coming up in August. Just by the way, whoever's listening to this live or the recording, we are going to have Austin back on in August, and we're going to be talking about the Refuge and their treatment center and what they do, how it functions, the whole process. So that's kind of a tidbit. Next month, if you have somebody that needs to go into treatment or somebody that's looking for treatment, we're going to be highlighting the Refuge as a possibility for men and women here in Columbus, and we're going to highlight their ministry. But back to the question here is the spirituality part of this connection to Christ. If you're a Christian, God, how important is that? And is it possible? Is it truly possible to be to overcome without that type of spiritual connection, in your opinion, Austin?
So yes, I think that was a very, very good question, and I think I'll unpack it in the way where I personally think, and we believe as an organization, the Refuge, that this relationship with Christ is the most important thing, because it dictates all those other things. So if we don't have that healthy relationship with Christ, which does affect our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with others, our relationship with the systems that we're in, if that one with Christ isn't healthy, the others are going to mess up sometimes. We might be able to hold them together for a while. And that's just kind of like what Hugh said earlier, just like that makes like me by myself, I can screw things up. I'm excellent. I'm a professional screw up. That's how things are. So there are, without Christ, things get super messy because there's that knowing that, like, because I'm not God. And if I put that pressure on myself, like, I'm going to crush myself because I'm not God. But if I put it on others, they're my 100% success is dependent on others, I'm going to crush them. So that's why that dependence on Christ, on Jesus, is he can't be crushed by it. And he also holds us, but he also gives us the ability to do things on our own. It's like this empowering dependence that we have on him. He empowers us and we're dependent on him at the same time. And that's how, just by modeling who he is and who Christ is Christ was walking around in community all the time. He did things solo, but he was always with people, always with messed up people. So it's not just kind of like, oh, we need to surround ourselves with messed up people. It's just like, no.
Yeah.
You're around people, so you are one of those surrounding people who are messed up also. So that's why it's important to be, that's why I see that first relationship with Christ as most important. The other ones are very important and we address those, but that one on Christ is very important.
Wow. That's great.
You asked the question. That's a heavy question, man.
That's my question, and I kind of more than what I asked for. But thank you so much for sharing that. And, this conversation is geared towards our faith-based community, and so we are coming from that perspective that God is an important factor in being in the individual's lives when it comes to addiction. That's just the perspective we're coming from. We're not pushing anything on anybody, but we know that's the perspective we're coming from this webinar. So thank you for sharing that. And that'll lead me into kind of these three kind of areas we're going to talk about here. So,
Sean, if I can for a moment.
Yeah. Yes, please.
See, I believe also that faith encompasses many things, many identities, many identities. So I don't want to leave my other brothers and sisters out there that may not, correspond to my particular faith.
That's
because spirituality is broad. I always say I don't want to debate myself out of a breakthrough. You know what I mean? And I don't want to be that dude or that person, that says, because I believe in God, what you believe in, it don't matter to me. No, that'd be very foolish to do that, because I'm multicultural. Addiction does not discriminate. It don't care. If you there, it wants you. So step 2 says, and recovery says, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Whatever you feel is that thing that's helping you out. That's what you do. I just want to put that out there. That faith is broad. It is, whatever you feel that works for you. Let it work for you. If it helps you to get well, rock with that. And
Yeah.
then later on, if some things change, things will change.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If someone's trying to get out of addiction, it's not the time to have a theological debate. It's the time to, and that's the, as a, there's like Hugh, you're hitting on that, like there's like some unnecessary drama or like debate between,
Yeah, we don't want that debate.
no, between like even medically assisted treatment or abstinence based or faith or secular. It's like, how will we just get people alive? And
Right.
knowing that, like, if people in faith are like, well, I want to help people, like, that's great. You can help people. There's nothing in the Bible that says you can't help someone who's addicted, who's not a believer. So help and serve those who are asking for it, who are reaching out for it. And
Right.
in that process, then you can share your faith by using words when necessary, but serving and loving others the way we're supposed to, the way that Christ said. And then when people ask why, that's your opening. It's not, hey, do you know Jesus? And then I'll make sure you're alive. It's like, let's start with, making sure someone's living. So that's an excellent point.
Absolutely. You gotta catch the fish first.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that the meeting the need first is the most important. That if someone needs help, then we help them. And I agree with you, is we will have the opportunity, if we love them well, they're going to want to know why, they're going to know the reason why we care for them so deeply. So I agree with you. Yeah, we can't scale the fish before we catch it. So thank you guys for bringing that point up. I really appreciate here that perspective. So let's kind of like we'll move into these kind of three areas that that really can contribute to addiction, and I want to talk about the spiritual piece, which we kind of already kind of hit on. So like, can my relationship with God have a correlation, have any correlation or impact to my addiction? So we kind of hit on that a little bit, but what maybe we could share just a little bit more. And so when we're talking about this spiritual relationship, the relationship with Christ, with God, in your opinion, how strong is that correlation, or what impact can that have on keeping someone in addiction or getting them out of addiction? We've kind of hit on that a little bit.
Hugh, you want to take that one?
I sure can.
Mm-hmm.
It's a spiritual matter first with me and my God. Religion takes care of itself. I want people to understand the God I serve is not punishing. Mm-hmm. He is loving. That's the God I serve. And that relationship with based on love is going to draw me deeper into obedience, deeper into the spirituality of caring about myself, which is, there's some things down further that's going to address that. But, if I know God loves me, I'm going to be better able to love myself. If I'm stuck with this fear, not respect, but fear, then I'm going to buckle up and I'm going to push myself further and further away from health, from wellness, from good manageable skills to deal with my addiction. I'm going to go further deeper into addiction and the traumas and everything if I feel that, God is not hearing me. He doesn't love me. He's not talking to me. No, I need to get that relationship straight, and understand this. Recovery is first for me, because if I'm not present, I'm not even recognizing my spirituality. If I'm jacked up, I'm in no condition. Talk about God. That's just me.
That's good.
Yeah.
Anything to add to that, Austin?
Yeah, I think our relationship with God it highlights that deepest need in us, because if we can accept, so like if you grew up in church or in faith, you're constantly hearing, it's like, oh, God loves me, God loves everybody. It's like that's or God loves us, God loves the world. But there's that incredibly personal and unique statement of God loves Austin. God loves Hugh, God loves Sean, that whatever thing that jumps up in me is like, well, God may not love that part of me. If I'm struggling with that, then that relationship that he's talking about isn't right. And so if I'm not going to fully give of myself, or give the opportunity to think that maybe, just maybe, God loves me for who I am as I show up at the table first, and then that gives me the space to then see the things that I know in of myself that I'm not happy with, that I want to improve, instead of just like deflecting that, like, oh, it's like my relationship with God isn't real because he wouldn't like this part of me. So if I know that he does, then I have this space to like start working on those things, which I'm not denying are good. It's knowing that I have a loving God. It's the same thing we would do with our kids. It's like, I see something in you and I want to help you improve, or I want to help you get stronger in this, or I want to help you identify these things or walk through these things. That doesn't mean we ignore the tough parts. It means we're owning them. And that's that getting that relationship with God first and God right is so important. And that it does immediately impact recovery. Because if we're not addressed, because that's who it's not, being in recovery isn't like everything about us. It is a part of us that affects a bunch of different things. So we have to own that part. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm just gonna chime in right quick because that's near and dear to me, because my father's a pastor. And I grew up in church. That's what we did. That was our life, right? But as I got older, I came to understand I had to have my own personal relationship with God. I couldn't live vicariously through my dad, like a proxy. You know what I'm saying? When I came forward, they asked me, did I want to have a relationship? They didn't say because your dad or your mom or any of your friends, because they rocking with God, you want to be down with that. I'm like, I have to have that personal relationship, because now as a grown adult, my addiction requires me to be accountable to God, not my dad or anybody else standing there for me. And, they can be in the gap for me. They can intercede for me, but I got to stand up as a man and deal with this through my personal relationship with God, my personal relationship. So it absolutely affects, or impacts my addiction, because I can't transfer this over to some very strong, powerful prayer warriors and everything. I got to be upright, circumspect myself. So it's important that I know God and the pardon of my sins, not yours.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you for sharing. That's very good. And hopefully our hearers are out there, or those who are hearing this or listening to this, and this really drives home in their mind and in their heart how important it is to have that spiritual, that connection with God to help us get through addiction here. He's here to help, not to harm us or to judge us, like Austin said, or he's not mad at us. It's he understands what it is to be human, actually. That's when Jesus came. He came in the flesh. And so it's very important that we talk about this and let individuals know that it's a big part of recovery. So real quick, we're going to take a quick time out here, about halfway through the webinar. I'm going to ask my administrator to put up the quick poll here. We need to capture a couple pieces of information. It's take about 10 seconds, actually. So if you can do that for all our attendees, if you just take 5-10 seconds, answer those questions real quick here. Once again, we have to report this information back to the state of Ohio, and it helps us to continue to provide this type of educational and webinars to the community here. So if you would just take a few minutes here and take care of this for me, we'll get right back into our questions here and continue to discuss and unpack opioid awareness and addiction. Okay, I think we have everyone. So thank you everyone for sharing that. Also, for anyone who's out there live on our webinar, if you have any questions, there's a Q&A button you can click on your Zoom and browser, and we'll be glad to answer any questions live for you as well if you have some. So please let us know if you have any questions here. So thank you. So we'll jump right back into this next section. So we talked about our relationship with God and how that can contribute and impact us in terms of addiction. So let's move to the second piece. And we've kind of hit on this throughout the webinars. Let's talk about our relationship with ourselves, because this is a big one. How we think about and how we feel about ourselves. How does that contribute? And we've hit on it, but maybe there's some different points you guys want to make when it comes to addiction. How does that relationship with my inner self that no one sees, how does that impact addiction?
Hugh, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can absolutely go first. You know, sometimes there's points where I don't see myself how God sees me. That's because of my flesh, you know, uh, low self-esteem, the low self-value.
Mhm.
Understand that I'm seeing myself through the lens of this flesh. It is an inside job. It is a flesh job. God sees me as perfect. He don't make mistakes. So if I'm here, that means God did some good work. So Hugh is good work. So I have to have that self-esteem. Now I have to believe that. I have to believe that. Today I believe that. Regardless of what the appearance may be, I know what God put on the inside of me that makes me shine. It gives me relevance. And I'm going to continue to walk in that confidence and in that belief. So Hugh is good today. Now, I haven't always been that way, but I'm good today. God sees me different than I see myself. And I have to believe it. And other people, come along and they encourage you, and help you along to help you fortify that confidence in yourself. But I made a conscious decision that I was not going to continue. They say the self-conscientious are always most critical of themselves. I have to be careful with that self-condemnation piece, because that's a hindrance in my relationship with God also. If he constantly telling me I'm good, but I'm clapping back at him telling me no, something gonna go bad, and I don't want that to happen ever again. So I can get real winded on this topic right here. I really can. So I'll just leave it right there.
All right. Thank you for sharing. These are valuable insights that we need to expose and share. Austin.
Yeah. So at the very beginning, we were talking about self-awareness, and that's like the first step in when it comes to just having a healthy mental state about ourselves or relationship with ourselves. And we can't have that self-awareness if we first don't know that our story. So having the courage and having the people around us to be able to unpack some of that stuff that what you were talking about at the beginning, Sean, that unpacking, getting to the root of our story. Some of that stuff we don't want to touch. There's things that we grew up with where everyone around us was like, we do not talk about this. Like families are sometimes centered around something we never talk about. Everyone knows it, we don't talk about it. And it could be something big, it could be something small. Usually it's something big. But knowing your story and how it impacts you, that's self-awareness. But then just leaving it there, like I'm aware of the crap in my past, or I'm aware of the good things in me, how God made me, I'm aware of them. That's half of it. The second part, the more difficult part, is knowing if I have self-awareness that I realize that there are limits and losses that I have in my life. There's only so many minutes in a day. There's only so many people I can be friends with. There's seasons in life where that goes in and out, where certain people are really important. I'm with them all the time because of work or family or life season. So there's limits and but that losses part is like, because of my past or because of my current limitations, there's gonna be things that I'm gonna miss out on.
Yeah.
And that's gonna hurt. And that's gonna, so then am I aware of it and I see that, then it's that acceptance, self-acceptance part, which is that self-love, which is so hard for many of us. It's hard for me. Self-acceptance, really difficult. But it's going through that with other people and talking through it. That's how we know our story is true. Because if it, like what we said earlier, if it's just me by myself telling my story, if I don't back it up or talk with it, tell it to people out loud or write it down, then I can't gauge it and have those other people that care about me, that want what's best for me, that celebrate when I celebrate and cry when I cry, saying like, this is your story and it's true and honest. And so it's identifying those things. And that's how you start to have that healthier mental state. It's a very overly simplified path, but it's getting to that. So self-awareness, knowing your story, and then accepting it, knowing the limits and losses, and loving yourself despite those, in spite of it.
Yeah.
So that's that mental health part. And when it comes to recovery, or addiction, it's identifying, it's like, so addiction isn't everything and it's not my be all end all. It is a part of it, and it had a huge impact. So how do I respond? How do I use that for the betterment of myself and the people around me and the community I live in and the community I care about? Because if without those experiences, like Hugh is able to speak into something that I never will because of his history, because of his past. I will never be able to speak into it the same way. He and I can say the same thing. He's going to have a much bigger impact. So some of the most painful things in our lives will have the biggest positive impact on others' lives and ours if we own that and we accept that that's what it is.
Absolutely.
I could talk about it for a long time, so I'll stop there.
No, I do agree that the painful areas in our lives, those areas that are typically, where there's shame and condemnation and that unworthiness, I really believe those are the areas that actually bring healing to others if we are willing to open up, because it exposes the light on those areas. And so, from what both of you had said, there is a understanding of self-hate, unworthiness, shame, and condemnation that we carry on ourselves that actually is a hindrance. It sounds like it's a hindrance to recovery. It's a hindrance to healing. And so we have to find a way then to get through that. And it sounds like it's through conversation. It's through Austin, you talked about sharing your story, getting that out of you, off your chest, sharing, exposing the light to that. And I think as men, and I could be wrong, I think can be a challenge to share our feelings. And typically women are more emotional. They're wired differently. And so I think as men is even more important that we have that community that Austin's talking about, and to be able to open up to each other, have a friend or something like that. So there could be some men out there that they don't have anybody to talk to, and they're carrying some of these things around, not knowing that shame or unworthiness is driving them to that addiction there. So thank you guys for sharing, and I'm hoping that we're really exposing and opening, bringing light to the situation here. So for the sake of time, go ahead. Yep, go ahead.
There's one phenomenon in the recovery community that we have, and it's called sponsorship.
Okay.
Have someone that has experienced what we're experiencing, that can guide us through all of these issues. We have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
It's called sponsor. You can call them a guiding light. You can call them a navigator. You can call them, your homie, mentor. That's what's important about this new movement of peer-to-peer, peer recovery supporters, peer recovery specialists, because we're able to see someone at the point of their pain and say, we know about it because we are you. I am you. And here's how I dealt with it. And here's how we can get you up out of this. That's very important. So sponsorship is very important.
So Hugh, what would you say to the man who's out there and he's really, he's carrying all this stuff. What would you say to the man that says, I want to reach out to somebody, a sponsor or a mentor, but he can't find it within himself? Like, what do you tell the man who may listen to this, or the woman that may listen to this? What would your words of advice be to them?
I know how difficult it is to be vulnerable. And I know how difficult it is to trust. But unless I become vulnerable, and unless I learn how to trust, unless I do something different than what I've always done, I'm not going to get a different result. So I'm ready to do something different. Are you ready to do something different? I'm here for you. And I'm here with you because I've been there and I know the way out.
Wow. And so if you're out there right now and you're listening to this, we are encouraging you. We are pleading with you. We are really asking you to find someone, whether it's someone like Austin at the refuge or someone like Hugh who's in the community and is a hand that is reaching out to you. So if you find yourself in a situation out there, look, we're here to help you. We're putting this on to help you. Reach out, find someone that you can share with, please. And at the end, we'll give out some contact information. So if you would like to reach out and hear more about the refuge, we can connect you with Austin in the refuge organization. We can connect you with Hugh. And we are resources, we're tools that we want to be used to help in this process. This is what this is all about out there. It's all about helping you out there who are listening to this here. So thank you so much for sharing, Hugh. We really appreciate, and we'll make sure we get that contact information in the last few minutes of the webinar.
These are things that we did. It's not who we are. These are things that we did.
Yep.
Not who we are.
That is true. Who you are is what you're doing right now and how you're responding.
Come on. And so we'll probably get to two more questions here, or maybe this may be the last one, depending on how we're getting short on time. But I want to make sure we attack this one as well, because we're going to talk about the relationship piece of this. So we've kind of intertwined a lot of this conversation already, but I do want to make sure that we talk about the broken relationship piece. And I know the refuge really focuses on that. You mentioned it several times in my conversation with you. You mentioned it. Can we talk about how important and how that plays a role in this addiction, and some of the tools to help restore that?
So from the perspective of somebody who talking to someone in addiction, that relationship with that person is first, it's being consistent for them. So that means if somebody is in active addiction, that means you're going to put up consistent boundaries, because that's what a healthy relationship has. It's we are seeking mutual respect. That's how we build trust. And by seeking that mutual respect, it means we don't lie to each other. If we do lie, these things happen, and vice versa. It's not like there's rules just for someone who's in addiction and rules for others. It's those boundaries are going to have to be clearly and often stated. Where it gets messy is when it's family or someone that we love. We want to break and bend those relationship boundaries that we put up, which are hurtful to everyone, including the person that we care about. What he was talking about, being vulnerable. Vulnerability is one of the most difficult things that we can ever do, and it's like a muscle. And if we don't work it out, it gets lower and lower and lower. But being vulnerable is ultimately offering people the tools to hurt us the most, and trusting that they won't use them to hurt us, but trusting that they'll see them for who we are, and then it's reciprocal. That's how relationships are built, is being vulnerable with people, with the appropriate people.
Yeah.
So we're not walking, like, vulnerability isn't walking around to everybody on the street and telling them all these, like, your credit card information, last time you lied, all these different things. It's the appropriate people who care about you and you care about. Being honest and open with them, to the sense where it's like, I'm giving you the things to, now you can hurt me the most. That's what falling in love is identifying the person we think can fix our problems. And the only way we think they can fix them is they know our problems. So that's what that is. And so building those relationships are incredibly important. It means that it does not mean that the person that we're being honest and vulnerable with isn't ever going to hurt us. It's knowing that they're going to, but they still love us. That doesn't change the fact that they care about us. And why it's important to identify those things is if we aren't taking that first step of vulnerability, we're never going to trust someone more. We're never going to be able to be trusted more. And trust is the foundation of every relationship. So you see how it's kind of like built on itself. If you're not vulnerable, you trust people, you can't have relationships. If you don't have relationships, you're always going to be stuck in this addiction. So what do we need to do? So that means for the person who's in addiction or the person who cares for that person, vulnerability is how you start. It's what you do. So that means the person who is, if there's someone in your house who's using, you have to be vulnerable with them. Like, you're terrifying me. I'm afraid you're going to die if you do this. Like, I don't want you to die. I am terrified for this. It scares me to death that someone else in this house is going to touch the fentanyl and they're going to die and we're not going to know about it because you're lying to us. Say the thing that should be said. Start with that vulnerability and be honest about your fear. People are motivated by 3 huge things. It's fear, shame, and guilt. I'm guilty. I feel guilty. I don't want to say anything because they're in this addiction because I'm blaming myself. I'm ashamed because I don't want to talk about it because then other people will know that this person I care about is in addiction. Those things. So it's identifying. So vulnerability is attacking all 3 of those at the same time.
Oh, wow.
I could keep talking, but I know Hugh has a lot better insights on this. So
I won't say it, brother. I'll just say I can enhance and I can, rock alongside you.
yeah.
So, because I don't want that pedestal. It's a thing about understanding what opioids can do to us. It will literally rob us of our mind, our hearts, and our soul. It is crafty, cunning, baffling, and powerful, like another thing is. This is what this thing is going to do to you. It has done to us. And we're going to be put in a position to have to go into areas of our life that we did not know sometimes existed, to that core. But cultivating a relationship is going to require trust. It's going to require compassion. It's going to require, helping a person understand that we are here to help, that I am here to help. I'm going to advocate for you. When you're not strong enough, to advocate for yourself, I'll be your voice.
Okay.
I'll hold you down. I'll hold you up. I won't shame you. I won't push you further into pain that you're already in. That's what I see happening a lot. I will say it. It's just the way it is. That's not what we need to be doing, and I'll stop right there.
That pain part's real important because it's not the avoidance of pain. It's choosing which pain we want to deal with at this time. So we're either, because if we avoid, like, I'm avoiding this pain, all we're doing is just putting it off. And then we have the anxiety and tension of knowing that it's coming down. I don't know when it's going to jump out and get me, but it's going to get me. Or I could do it right now. And I don't know, it's going to hurt a lot, but I'm bringing it on and I'm addressing it. So it's pain both ways. It's just depending on which pain we want to deal with. Do we want to deal with pain and separation of owning up to our actions and dealing with those consequences, or do we want to put that pain off and lie? I don't know. Like, no one feels good when they lie. Anybody who says I like lying, it's like you're lying to yourself, which is another lie, and you're just really good at it, and that's painful again. So it's not the absence of pain; it's how we respond in pain. Being a responsible man, being a responsible person, is acknowledging, being more responsible, is saying I can handle more pain. I can just not press it down and not deal with it, but it's like I have the capacity. There's a higher capacity for more because it is not all on me. I have a team of people, a mentor, a Hugh, a sponsor that is helping me deal with and handle more pain, not push it down and ignore it because then it comes out. It's how we deal with it.
Wow. And that goes back to the root, understanding the root cause of my addiction, because brought up the way I'm brought up, man, don't talk about emotions and weaknesses and things of that nature. But thank God, that I have an opportunity to be brought up around some serious, strong women, that I was able to get some things off my chest throughout my life. I'm just blessed to have that foundation and learn how to do it without surrendering my manhood, so to speak, And I will also say this, the opioid situation can and will become a permanent solution to a temporary situation.
Yes.
Mm.
I want you to know this.
Yep.
It will be a permanent solution. It can take us there. And I know time is of the essence. So
Yeah.
I just wanted to put that out there.
No, thank you so much. I mean, I think both of you have are sharing some valuable insight, wisdom to help any individual who's out there listening to this, to help guide them into a life that can better relationships, is closer to God. And so we appreciate. So I'm gonna, for the sake of time, I'm gonna ask this final question. It's kind of going to be three packed in one. So the last thing I'll ask you guys is I want you guys to, number one, leave some final words for our audience here. Um, I wish we had another hour. There's so much stuff we didn't get to. So your final words, and then contact information. Where can they reach you? Maybe if they need to get a hold of you. And also, I'll put your contact information on our webinar once it's edited, so anyone who watches this can email, call, text, whatever way to get a hold of you. And then last, maybe one resource. Can you take 60 or 90 seconds? I know it's not a lot of time, and kind of knock that out. So final words of encouragement or whatever you contact information, and maybe one resource you would recommend for those who will listen to this now or in the future.
I'll
So
go.
I'll go ahead.
I'll go first, you. That way
Sure.
you have more time. So I think the biggest thing that I would take back, this is for everybody, not just someone who's struggling in addiction, is own your story. Know it, own it. Because if what you don't own is going to own you, if you ever wonder why you do something that doesn't make sense, it's probably because you're not owning something. The other one is that there is hope after addiction. Addiction isn't absence isn't the focus of addiction. It's not I'm not doing something. It's what I am doing in place of. It's the hope in your future isn't the fact that I'm not using something. The hope in your future is that you have new, healthy, stronger relationships and building better ones. There's more hope with it's not about not using, it's about what you can do now and what you can do moving forward. The best way to contact me is through the Refuge. So our intake number and our contact number is 614-991-0131. And I'll put it in the chat so we can put it out there. And then our website is also the next best way. It answers pretty much everybody's questions. It's therefugeohio.org. So THE refuge, REFUGE, ohio.org. So that would be there's a bunch of information and resources on that website. So would love to talk to anybody more.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate that. And then Hugh, your final thoughts to our audience, to our viewers, what would you share with them, and also contact information? If you'd like to share that, once again, I'll post this on the webinar once it's edited. And then also any resource that you would recommend for anyone out there struggling.
I would say to those of us who are out here and you just don't see any possible way of getting better, secrets make you sick. Secrets will keep you sick. If you're ready for it to happen, if you're ready for change to happen, open your mouth. Ask for help. Say something. Make it known. Tell on your disease. You know, you can hear all these clinical rehabilitation slogans and mottos and everything. The next available chance you get to hold your head up from being down, open your mouth at the same time. I would also say that the National Alliance for Mental Health, NAMI.org, NAMI.org, has tremendous resources. They have tremendous faith-based resources as well. And that has helped me tremendously in my journey thus far. And I can be contacted at Ruff, last name Ruff, H29 at AOL.com. Ruff, H29 at AOL.com. And I know where you at. If you're there, I've been there. And I'm not but a stone throw away. I'm but a bad decision away from going right back. That's fact.
All
So
right,
I got
well,
the maintenance. I got the maintenance myself every day.
thank
Every
you.
day.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys both. This has been a tremendous pleasure to sit down with both of you and to have you guys share your knowledge, your expertise, and to really open up and kind of peel back addiction and take a look at it from maybe a different perspective that maybe other people haven't looked at. So I want to thank you guys both as we close here. Last thing. Like I said, I'll list their contact information as well as information our ministry as well. You're welcome to follow us on Facebook, Numa Outreach Ministry. We do a monthly homeless outreach. You're welcome to partner with us with that, whether coming out and feeding the homeless or supporting us in any way. But I want to thank everyone for joining today. It's been a pleasure to spend an hour with you. Maybe there'll be a part 2 possibly down the road. But once again, thank you for our attendees for joining us today. Hugh, you have one thing?
I forgot to shout out my pastor, Pastor Eric Miles at the City Church, Reynoldsburg. Please forgive me. I love
There you
everybody.
go.
Pastor Renee, Elder Janari Maxwell, Candace Jordan, Jerry Alexander, all my peoples in recovery, the veterans. Shout us out.
All right. Well, shout out to our Hughes people out there at church there. And look, we appreciate your time. It's been a wonderful discussion today. We hope that you have a rest of the day is blessed. We hope you're encouraged by this. Be sure to share this, like this, comment on this, and we'll have this posted on my website probably within the next 2 weeks. So if you want to listen to this again, it'll be up and available. We love you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the day. You guys be blessed.